Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Cloud Show. Today, we're going to have a very interesting conversation. We're going to talk about the value of having some super experts in your company. If you have a company and you have technical people employed, why would you, as a company leader, support or try to help and try to nurture having Microsoft most valuable professionals in your company? What's in it for you? We're going to talk to, I guess, one of the people that would know this all the best. It's a community program manager for this specific program and the regional directors program. She is my community program manager. So please welcome to the Cloud Show, Tina Stenderup-Larsen.
Hey, Magnus.
Hello, Tina. Welcome to the Cloud Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Absolutely, it is not at all. It's my pleasure very much, because there is an important conversation that we will have today, or this is a very interesting and important conversation. But first, I would like to to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. We already know your job title. What do you do, and who are you?
Who am I? So yeah. First of all, just a heads up, I have like really bad allergies today, so if I'm coughing, you know why. But anyway, I am working for Microsoft. I've done so for over 18 years now. And in the last 11, I think, I work with the technical communities. Initially, the broader the broader developer and IT professionals community. And in the 8 years, I worked with the MVP and RD programs for the Nordics and Benelux area.
Yeah. And that means that there's a lot of MVPs and a lot of regional directors in your sphere, in your area that you manage, take care of, and so forth. Yes. Brilliant. So you work all the time with super experts, technical super experts. That's your job.
Exactly.
Now, that's a very interesting thing to be discussing, because when we have super experts, what does that even mean? What is an MVP, right? And then I think the bigger question is, as a company leader, if somebody has a company, why would they support having MVPs in their company? Because honestly, I'm going to just put it out there. Aren't experts kind of expensive, right? And they keep running away to go to conferences and doing other things, right? So more expensive, less productive. Is that true? Let's talk about this. What is an MVP?
An MVP is a deep technical expert within a Microsoft technology areas. So, and it very often, because it's the real world, right? It also includes other technology areas, but we look into the Microsoft technology area. So that can be everything from developer to infrastructure. And MVPs, they spend all their free time that they can manage to volunteer for the MVP award program. To share their knowledge with the broader community. That's what they do, and that's what we care about, and that's why we recognize those individuals.
Yeah. So these are people who are community leaders, people who write books or have a very important blog or a podcast or things like this that are pushing in the community for sharing knowledge.
Yeah. You would see MVPs everywhere, speaking at conferences, hosting, like driving meetups, contributing to code, blogging, as you said, writing books, all that stuff. That's what you see MVPs do.
Yeah, and what's so Microsoft choose to recognize these individuals to become MVPs, and what's the value of this for Microsoft? Why do you do that?
Oh, that's like, first of all, we obviously want to recognize the massive, impactful work that's being done out there in the community. Secondly, MVPs are equally as important to Microsoft as they are for the broader community. MVPs work directly with product groups at Microsoft. That means that they have direct contact through distribution lists, through weekly meetings, to have direct conversations, providing feedback on current products and future releases. MVPs have access to NDA information that no one else has access to.
Right, and that means that we MVPs, I'm an MVP, as we said. We MVPs, we get previews. We get to know the direction of Microsoft before the public knows the same.
And that feedback and that that response the product group members and CVPs at Microsoft get directly from MVPs is a huge value to us.
Yeah.
It definitely changes future releases of products without a doubt.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So there's an exchange of value there between the individual who is an MVP and the and Microsoft, who recognizes MVPs as in their ranks. Brilliant. And there's an NDA and such involved. All right, that's brilliant. So, but it is important to note that it is not a company that is an MVP. It is an individual person who is an MVP.
Exactly.
Right. And many of these people, many of these MVPs are employees in some company somewhere.
Yes.
They can't work for Microsoft, but they can work for a partner of Microsoft, and they often do.
They do.
So the question then becomes, because like I was trying to be a little bit pointy at the beginning, we have heard there are scenarios where there becomes a little bit of a tug of war between an employee who chooses to be an MVP or strives to be one and is recognized as such, and the employer who employs this person. It's just a fact, and we might as well talk about this because it's important to understand if we can try to delve into what's the value of for an organization to have an MVP person as an employee. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, maybe, and maybe even more importantly than anything else for an employer, it is you get, excited, passionate employers who value that they work for a company that appreciate the value they bring to the broader community. And for all employers across our business, getting the right people is really tricky, right? We do not have enough developers, cloud people who can cover all the position that's needed, people on security.
Yep.
That is a challenge every single day for all companies out there.
Indeed.
So first, they get people who are super passionate about technology continue to working from them. So I would say that's one of the core values I, as an employer, would value a lot, because you keep people instead of that whole transition of getting new people in and all that hassle that involves moving people in and out of your company. And secondly, because of that drive MVPs have, which is unlike anything I ever seen in my entire career, that is driven by pure passion. They spend, this, right? Because as you said, you're an MVP and an RD as well. You spend so much time diving into new technology areas, getting into the nitty-gritty details, feeding back to Microsoft, getting insights. Even if the insights from Microsoft cannot be shared, the overall knowledge from the employees who work at any company, Microsoft partner, any corporation, is so different from any other in the company. So they get super critical on technology. They can definitely bring value to the company, even if they cannot share it, but they have insights. And obviously they will be much more happy and passionate about working for that company if they can manage to workload balance their community activities as well. And then thirdly, being an MVP is a really strong brand, right?
Yes.
As an MVP, this is highly recognized. It's the longest existing community program that exists in tech. It is a leading star of many of the technology community programs out there, even if there exist a bunch of them and they're all great. MVP has a special meaning in tech. So, when you go as an MVP and you speak at a conference that might be a community conference, you will represent yourself as an MVP, but all the conversations you have, even if it's like ask the experts, things like that, where you share your knowledge, you are obviously also representing the company that you work for. So you as a company benefit from leveraging MVPs because they hold such extremely strong credibility in the community with customers and the broader population of developers and cloud people out there. So I would say that's like three things you get from being an employer with MVPs in your company.
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I have been employed, so I work in my own company right now. I'm self-employed, which is a lovely way of saying I'm unemployed between gigs. Not really. No, I work for my own company, and so I don't have a manager. Actually, my manager is me, but he's a good guy.
He makes it easy.
But having that said, I mean, it is when you're employed as an expert, as a driving person, who as an person who is driven, who is curious about new technology. What I have often seen as well, MVPs take as a position in a company is to be part of the internal as well, education of the internal, strengthening of skills inside of an organization.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. A valid point too. Very often we see, and I want to stress this. This is really important because when an MVP is up for re-award, we look at their contributions, and actually stuff that's done internally is not something that we really counter into what is the criteria. But again, that's just not one of the other things that MVPs do. They do stuff beyond the stuff that actually makes them re-awarded, and contributing internally to skilling up your peers is not something they get rewarded for from being an MVP. But hopefully that will be acknowledged from the employer,
by the company, right?
And that is super helpful. And again, it's a deeply skilled person that takes this on themselves to help their peers get more into the latest technologies and make them even better and grow as a team as well. So it's a huge benefit internally as well.
Yes, definitely it is. So what should we can we venture into having any sort of recommendations for how to have the conversation with between the employer and I mean, the mileage will vary for every company, obviously.
Yeah.
But how do you talk about this? Because, like you said, an MVP spends a good deal of time of the everyone has 7 times 24 hours, right? But spends a good deal of time learning about new technology and being out there in the community. And as an employer, you can say, well, you do that on your own time entirely, right? That's not, I mean, you still deliver a full-time, job here at our company. If you want to be an MVP, that's on you. But, it doesn't seem really fair because of the benefits that we have listed. Yeah. So how do you propose we have a conversation between employee who is an MVP or wants to become one, and maybe needs, some backing and support of their employer, and the employer who wants to have some benefit from every investment that they make, right? What should we do?
I think, well, it's a really good question and a tough
one. Isn't it?
I know, and I'm not surprised coming from you that it's a tough question. I would say, it's one of those struggle that exists, right? It's either you get community or you do not get community, right? And if you
understand or you don't understand, right?
Exactly. And it's like, it makes it really tricky to position it better, because I do understand if you're an employer, you have an MVP who's a consultant who do billable hours. And if they want to do, conferences
other things,
time, right? That makes it tricky, right? And I have seen like basically all constellations in the 8 years I've been with the program. Some people, even if really strong MVPs work for a company where they spend their own, take time off to go do community stuff, they pay, whatever they need to go to travel to a conference. And then people who really factors in the passion and creativity of MVPs and actually cater for like maybe do like Friday mornings are meetings off and they can focus on writing a blog post, whatever. So there's a whole like a huge variety on how you can actually, take care of your MVPs. Yeah. But I would say to be very tough, if you have a very passionate, really driven, amazingly good MVP working for you, and you are absolutely inflexible as an employer, what will eventually happen, and I've seen this many times, is that this person will go to a different job, because there's always someone out there who will give that person a job, right? That we have more jobs than we have people, right? So there's always, and we see more and more, Microsoft partners, but also other companies who really value that value that or appreciate the value that MVPs bring to them as a brand for their company. Because the thing is, if you truly believe what MVPs, truly believe the impact of MVPs, some companies actually are working. I see a shift now. Some companies are actually keen to get more MVPs in, because that kind of like, credibility, labels their consultants or their architects or whatever they have. So I see a shift, but the conversation around, I bring this when I go out and speak at a conference, or I join a meetup in the evening in my spare time. I also represent you, even if my MVP award is my personal one and I achieved it, right? I think that's the conversation. That's not like a whole FAQ. We can kind of like,
it's not easy. This is a difficult conversation. It's a difficult topic. And that's why I think that it's a valid one to talk a little bit about. I think that one challenge is, right, for every employee, you can count the cost in terms of salary and expenses, of how expensive is this person to have employed. And then you can count how many hours, if they're consulting, for example, how many hours have this person been billing? What's the billing rate of this person? How much am I making on this employee? And those are the hard numbers, and they're often quite easy to calculate. The flip side is the soft values, knowledge and branding and things like that, which MVPs are quite good at, or many are really good at. That's soft values, and it doesn't count the same. It's not easy to measure the value and the size and the impact of that.
No, but another thing that what I often hear from MVPs are also that they were obviously really good at their job before they became MVPs, but what they see now is a shift. So maybe they get the more challenging customers with more things that needs to be tied together, the bigger cases, and the company feel more at ease putting an MVP into that conversation with those challenging customers than they would have done before. This is also an added value. I have no insights into whether that actually means, more money per billable hour. I would assume, but I'm not sure. But that is also something.
But I can give you a little bit of insight there, because I've done this on occasion. It doesn't always apply, and it's not always the case that you can get a good answer. But as an MVP, what you can bring to the table with every customer interaction and every scenario, if there is a tricky problem, strange question, or something that is not working as it should, the MVP have the power to give that feedback directly to Microsoft. They don't go through the normal support channels. They can even, by virtue of having a network of people that they know inside of Microsoft, they can reach out to a specific individual and say, "Hey, I know you. We talked at the last MVP summit. We have this customer problem, so and so." And they can, sometimes an MVP can get a direct help.
That is in itself invaluable. You cannot put a price on it, right? But I think for some employers, they actually need to see this happen before they really think this is how it works. But all of us who do this on a daily basis, we know this is how it works, right? We know that when MVPs knock the door on a product group door, like they will answer and they will respond. And that's the very unique nature of being an MVP. But I do think, even for us who works with this, daily and understand it from inside, I still think, even if we talk about MVPs being a really strong brand, I think some of these like more, so what can they do and how do they really engage? It's still a bit of a black box. So I think that's also for the MVP to talk about, how can I influence, and what connections do I have? Mention some of the people that you connect with, and most people will be mind blown by the conversations with as an MVP, right? So there's a lot of power there.
There is, absolutely. Well, Tina, this conversation has been brilliant. I'm so happy that we had the time to cover this, and we will be sure to put out all the links for people to understand what the value is, and try to understand what conversation to have with the experts that you may or may not be able to employ and keep in your company.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming on the Cloud Show, Tina. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
An audience, see you next time on The Cloud Show.